Today is the film Her, directed by Spike Jonze. Is that pronounced correctly?
Jones. Yeah.
Jones. And he won an Oscar for the screenplay. It's set in the near future, and it's about a man who falls in love with an unusual woman.
An unusual woman, yes. Joaquin Phoenix plays Theodore, who earns his living writing letters for people who don't have the time or the talent to handle their own intimate correspondence. He's a decent, sensitive fellow, still extremely sad over the breakup of his marriage, when he buys a new computer operating system. And this is no ordinary piece of software. It's a very accommodating personal assistant who goes by the name of Samantha, and who learns to anticipate Theodore's every need, and it speaks to him with the voice of Scarlett Johansson. Now, given how funny and thoughtful Samantha turns out to be, it's not hard for us to believe it when Theodore falls head over heels in love with Samantha, who is the perfect woman, except that she doesn't have an earthly body and she's a voice in a computer. But is a body really a prerequisite for romance? Let's watch.
Mr. Theodore Twombly, welcome to the world's first artificially intelligent operating system. How would you describe your relationship with your mother? Thank you. Please wait as your operating system is initiated.
Hello, I'm here.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Samantha. Good morning, Theodore.
Morning.
You have a meeting in 5 minutes. You want to try getting out of bed?
You're too funny.
Okay, good, I'm funny.
I've never loved anyone the way I love you.
Me too. Now we know how.
So is this science fiction, Lisa?
Technically, yes. But if you think about it, the world is now full of people who get anxious if they can't check their social media platforms several times an hour. They've actually proven that in clinical studies, there are people who break into a cold sweat and show the same symptoms of withdrawal as heroin addicts and alcoholics if you take away their smartphone. So if millions of people in 2014 have formed these codependent relationships with their telephone, falling in love with a voice in a computer doesn't really seem that far-fetched, does it? Now, I happen to be a member of the last analog generation, so my attention span and my tastes and my sensibilities were formed by things like memorization, looking things up in physical books, taking notes. I have a dreadful sense of direction, and I always have, but there was no sort of talking device to tell me how to get anywhere except another human being until recently. So-called digital natives see the world quite differently, and there's all sorts of evidence that these gizmos we rely on are actually scrambling our brain cells, but we're convinced we can't do without them. And to me, that sounds an awful lot like love.
I caught myself thinking about it.
Now, as I mentioned before, the director, Spike Jonze, won an Oscar for his screenplay, but is the film any good?
Oh, I like it quite a bit. Some of my colleagues object to the fact that Theodore chooses to fall in love with his operating system when, in fact, there are flesh and blood options available. But I think that's actually part of the point about where human interactions may be headed. And Johansson gives Samantha a genuine attractiveness using just her voice and inflection. Here's actor Joaquin Phoenix explaining what the set was like and what it was like to work with director Spike Jonze. Let's watch.
Spike had designed the set in such an amazing way that it really felt intimate, really felt like it was my home. Yeah, I like working with Spike a lot. Obviously, this is a script that he wrote, so he had a lot of great insight into the characters and the world, and it was such a unique world that he'd created. He's a really collaborative director.
Now, Lisa, let's move on to the Women's International Film Festival. The 36th edition is underway in a Parisian suburb called Creteil. Now, I have to say that some people would be surprised that such a thing exists, an all-female film festival.
Yeah, it's not the only film festival on Earth dedicated to films made by women, but it's probably the biggest such event, and women come from all over Europe, indeed from all over the world, to attend. I have to point out, when I was in film school in the mid-1970s, I actually had a male professor who did not get in trouble for declaring women can't make movies. And I would like to think that nowadays, if anyone tried to say that, they would get castrated or circumcised without anesthesia or something.
Maybe not that severe a punishment. But
So I've witnessed enormous progress since I graduated. Here in France, they say half of the students enrolled in film schools are female. More women are directing all the time. A very recent study in the U.S. says that there are way too few women both in front of and behind the camera in the U.S. But here in France, when I was voting for year-end awards, I took a really close look at the films released here in 2013. I'm going to bury you in statistics here. There were 109 first-time directors, and 28 of those were women. So that's almost 20%. 25%. An additional 41 films were directed by French women who have already made one or more movies. So you add that up and you get 69 films. That's 1.43 movies a week by French directors year-round who happen to be women. And if you look at the films made in other countries, I counted 52 directed by women, and that's a list that includes Catherine Bigelow, Sarah Polley, Sally Potter, Lana Wachowski, Margarita von Trotta, and Lena Wertmüller. So if you ignore the actual date the movies came out on, filmgoers in France had their choice of 2.43 new films directed by women every week of the year, and I prefer to think that the screen is not half empty, but half full.
Okay, thank you very much, Lisa. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for today. We'll see you again very soon. Now, let's take a look at some sports. It was a good night